I'm Zach LeBeau for Evotion Media, and today we're talking revolution with Joe Lubin. Joe graduated cum laude from Princeton University with degrees in electrical engineering and computer science. He then went into the fields of autonomous mobile robotics, machine vision, and neural networks before going into the hedge fund industry, after which he was a music producer in Jamaica for a time and is now the COO of Ethereum. That's an interesting dynamic from one extreme to the other, to the highly centralized, one percenter-esque hedge fund industry, to the decentralized, power to the people type Ethereum protocol. How did that happen?
Evolution, I guess, just doing what made sense at the time.
You know, I read a lot of people saying that this is a Bitcoin revolution, what's happening here, but it's more than just Bitcoin. It's the protocols inspired by Bitcoin. It's Ethereum. You know, these tenets of decentralization, transparency, peer-to-peer interaction. What sort of phrase can we attribute to what's happening? How do we define this?
I think it's bigger than just those protocols. I think it's all about decentralization.
So that's the main revolution here. That's the.
A long time ago, when we lived in smaller units, villages, tribes, it was easy to govern. It was easy to make decisions. The structure of the economy was based on consensus, basically. The ability to communicate virtually instantly, know who you're dealing with, and form decisions in a community very, very rapidly. So as we grew geographically more dispersed and our societies became more complex, then the proper, most efficient organizing principle was hierarchical top-down control systems. And those things are great for building big, complicated machines in situations where communication is difficult or slow or expensive. But they lead to certain kinds of economies and certain kinds of business structures and social structures, government, military, pyramids, basically. And those things have been wonderful and necessary for a long time, but they're not so necessary anymore because the internet has enabled the world to communicate rapidly and inexpensively, and these new decentralized technologies like BitTorrent, Bitcoin, Ethereum, enable the formation of consensus among geographically dispersed groups of people to be cheap and easy.
So what are we headed towards?
I think it's fair to say that there is, at least in certain circles, a backlash against centralized authority and centralized power and centralized wealth. And as I indicated before, the centralization is not so necessary anymore in order to build effective, efficient systems. It's necessary if you want to maintain control of those systems, if you're in a position where you have vested interests and you want to maintain and consolidate and increase power. Hierarchical top-down control systems are excellent for that, but our societies don't need them as much anymore.
I'm a sci-fi fan. I know you're a sci-fi fan. And, you know, majority of the science fiction, when you watch it on television or when you watch it in movies, you know, it's a very dystopian view of the future where there's this centralized, malevolent entity that has enslaved the human population or is in the process of doing that. You know, it seems like that, you know, with a lot of sci-fi programs and films. And these tenets of decentralization and transparency are the exact opposite. So it really gives sort of like this positive Gene Roddenberry-esque view of the future.
Sure.
That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, if you share power, if you enable people to be sovereign and self-determining, and these networks, I think, will enable them to build their own lives, build their own businesses, less dependent on financial censorship, in the sense that they can't get loans or can't get bank accounts even. So, yeah, the dramatic science fiction with the big, dark, centralized power, maybe that will be not a big presence on this planet at some point in the next few decades.
And it's too big of a presence now.
It's an appropriate sized presence now.
The centralization.
Yeah,
Okay.
We needed that sort of structure, the way we were configured on planet Earth to advance society and technology. It all made sense, and it was the right and efficient way to do things.
Right.
But it's no longer as necessary, and so you can still make use of a lot of that, and we can certainly make use of a lot of the benefits it brought, especially in the form of technology. But there are other organizing principles that might be more effective soon.
So this entire centralization, the concentration of power and wealth to very specific power bases, we're at a point in time now where we're evolving beyond that, or should be evolving beyond that?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Hope so.
So we've got a spectrum then, and on one extreme end of the spectrum is anarchy, total deregulation. Let's say the techno-anarchists, and on the other end of the spectrum.
But it's not anarchy. It's like a set of economic protocols implemented in code.
Okay, but compared to the other end of the spectrum, which is the central bankers, everything that this other side is, if they just saw this on paper 30, 40 years ago and read the tenets of it, it would, I think, be not only anarchy, but it'd be subversive and dangerous and an enemy to everything that they stand for.
I'm sure some people consider decentralization subversive. It goes against their personal or corporate agendas or governmental agendas.
I mean, because already there's fights brewing, there's battles being fought between the centralized establishment and everything that companies such as Ethereum and other companies in this Bitcoin realm are doing.
I think that's extreme to characterize it as fights. I think regulators or bankers are just doing their jobs. They're protecting their turf. If you're a regulator, your mission is to protect the public, perhaps, but also you have your own career and you're thinking about your own personal agenda. And so far what we've seen has not been, at least in the United States or most of the Western world, has not been too negative. These technologies are complicated and very different, very foreign, and so the understandable initial reaction is, stop that. How do we stop that? And when people, I've never really met anybody who, once they got it, once they understood Bitcoin and what it enables and how it works, that they weren't amazed and impressed with the technology itself and some potential ramifications. Unless they have some sort of agenda, there may be a pundit, economist pundit out in the world, perhaps, who writes strongly against Bitcoin, but I think he's kind of being paid to do that.
So you're seeing more or less eventually a positive, very smooth transition.
Talk to a lot of regulators, lawyers, bankers. There are a lot of people who are in favor of some of the changes that these kinds of technologies will bring.
So how would you, in the most simplest terms, describe Ethereum?
Gavin Wood, our chief technology officer, likens Ethereum to Web 3.0, which is basically a secure, decentralized, new kind of internet with security baked in right from the start.
How did you?
And a built-in monetary system.
The Ether. That's exactly. The built-in. Okay. How come you didn't use Bitcoin to fuel the Ethereum platform?
So that's interesting. So the one main difference, Ethereum is basically a decentralized application environment. So if you're a developer, you can develop decentralized applications for the system.
Like what, for example?
Decentralized application like an accounting system.
Okay.
So in a decentralized accounting system, basically all the nodes on the network process all the transactions in the program. Okay, so all the nodes on the network agree on exactly what your books are saying, and it's non-repudiable. So the CEO and the CFO can't go back 6 months later and change a number that they don't like so much. It's just, it's set in stone. It's right once.
No cooking in the books, total transparency.
Unless you can cook the books in real time.
Okay.
You can't cook the books.
Which you would need, presumably, some sort of computer brain to be able to do that possibly in real time, some programming?
It'll be much harder to perpetrate fraud in the system, because if you do choose to put your books on the system, they can be transparent. We are basically building a triple entry accounting system, so that one company will have a double entry accounting system, another company has a double entry accounting system, and whenever they do transactions with one another, it's really moving from one ledger in one company to another. So there's a third entry on the blockchain that governments could look at, regulators could look at.
And when you say blockchain, this is Ethereum's blockchain. It's not Bitcoin's blockchain.
The Ethereum blockchain, yeah. So Ethereum will be more like a new kind of internet.
And Ethereum's a protocol as well?
It's a set of protocols and specifications, yeah.
Okay.
And reference software clients.
So do you imagine that Ethereum will one day be the internet, or the internet will migrate over on the Ethereum protocol?
Sure, the internet will be a layer. Upon that is built Ethereum.
Okay.
And it is conceivable that the internet could go away and Ethereum could be essentially not built on the internet protocols, but for now it is.
I use my mother as an example because, you know, I helped introduce her to her very first cell phone. I helped her start her email account. She knows what a Bitcoin is because I've told her what a Bitcoin is. And when I go back for the holidays, I'll probably be helping her buy her very first Bitcoin. How is it going to impact, how is Ethereum going to impact her life? How could I explain Ethereum to her where she could integrate it into her everyday life?
Sure. It's a bit of a difficult question for me to answer right now, but I'll take a shot at it. My mother uses email right now, and that's a pretty remarkable thing. These technologies, they sort of, technologists build them and visionaries put something together, and it's not really clear that anybody was thinking about that. It's not clear that people were thinking about Netflix or just web browsers when the internet was invented. It's basically going to build a tighter global community where your communications will be mediated by it.
So basically, she probably won't even know that she's using Ethereum when she's using Ethereum?
In a big, yeah, she doesn't think, hey, I'm using the internet. She thinks, I'm sending Zach an email.
Right.
Right?
Right. So basically, it's one of these things where a number of different people, entities from around the world will be building these decentralized applications and adding them to or on top of Ethereum, and little by little, this decentralized application does this,
sure.
That just, you know, whatever, and then
people spend their lives on Facebook and Instagram, and people tweet their faces off all day long. Like these are new ways of living our lives.
Yeah.
And nobody thought about these things 15 or 20 years ago, really. Or very few people did.
Where are we 15, 20 years from now?
Moving fast. These technologies make everything so fluid, so liquid, so instantaneous that we as a species are on an exponential growth curve, especially with respect to technology, and we're
impossible to say.
We're not approaching we're always approaching the singularity, but I think I've noticed it. Maybe you've noticed it. Things are moving really fast.
Absolutely.
It's such a qualitative change.
Approaching the singularity is something we could do an entirely
different episode.
Another episode completely, another talk completely. How did you get involved with Ethereum?
With Ethereum? I've been tracking Bitcoin for a long time, since around 2011.
Okay.
It's a long time in this space.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really anything that exciting to me in the Bitcoin space other than Bitcoin itself. I looked at mining all the time. I did the calculations every week, and it still didn't make sense to, unless you're running a chip fab or you're an ASIC designer,
right.
It didn't make sense to become a miner
okay.
on that network. And all the businesses in the Bitcoin space seem to be run by immature or anarchic, just people that I probably wouldn't want to get into business with.
Okay.
I mean, I respected where they were coming from, and it was a lot of young people who were like PHP coders who thought that they could build a global exchange with some pretty weak technology. So they weren't mature business people, they weren't mature technologists, and a lot of those companies got taken down by smart security consultants
right.
from Russia and,
okay.
and India who
okay.
hacked them and stole all their money as their consulting fee. Bitcoin was strong enough. It's such a powerful technology, basically. The ideas are so strong that it survived a lot of madness in the early days of different schemes and failed businesses.
So you
yeah.
and what, a few other people got together and said, let's
right.
build something from scratch?
No. It was a kid named Vitalik Buterin, based in Toronto. And he was at University of Waterloo doing computer science. It was moving a little too slow for him, I think, and he was obsessed with Bitcoin. So he stopped doing that, traveled around the world for about a year, and Bitcoin was great, but all of us were looking for what it was going to enable. And so there was this notion of the Bitcoin 2.0 space, or the cryptocurrency 2.0 space,
right.
on which we would build a lot of different kinds of functionality onto this kind of decentralized network. And some people started to articulate it in the form of colored coins and Mastercoin. And Vitalik actually traveled around the world and lived in hacker spaces and worked with these different groups. He wrote some white papers for those different technologies. And basically he looked around at all these incredibly smart people, banging their heads in the wall, trying to shoehorn little bits of functionality onto a protocol that really didn't support it. So
you mean the Bitcoin protocol?
Bitcoin protocol,
okay.
Exactly. So these people are trying to shove complex mechanism into like 40 bytes of transaction, and it just didn't make sense. So he took a step back and said, okay, why don't we just build a universal compute machine, a computationally complete engine, and we'll bolt it into each node on the network, and we'll build a better kind of Bitcoin network, because a lot of academics have done a lot of research since Bitcoin came out. So you can build a better, faster, stronger network, and enable each node to be a computer on the network, not just a sort of transaction processor.
The news last week, I noticed that Counterparty was claiming or saying that they put certain Ethereum applications onto Counterparty.
Sure.
How's that possible?
Well, first of all, Ethereum is an open source, non-profit project, so everything's out there. Anybody can take it and look at it, study it, do what they want with it. Counterparty has built a great system. It's basically using the Bitcoin network, and they offer a small number of features. Basically, you can issue a token, you can do a Kickstarter, you can transfer tokens amongst one another, but it's not the very general computational engine. So on Ethereum, if you're a software developer, you can build anything that you can dream up. Counterparty just had to hard code specific features into it, so you had to wait for the Counterparty developers to build something that you liked, and that wasn't going to happen fast. So what they did was they took our virtual machine engine, our compute engine, and they bolted it onto their system.
Okay.
So they will be able to run a certain portion of of some of the contracts that run on Ethereum. But they're missing a whole lot of the other stuff that is useful and necessary in Ethereum.
That's why you build this protocol from the ground up, from scratch.
Not even that, but that's partly true. There are a lot of things that we wanted in addition to just the network protocol, but also there's no way ever for the Bitcoin network itself to be scalable. So a Bitcoin itself is gonna, if it gets very, very popular, it's gonna face scalability issues, and that too much data is stored on the system and transactions per second could get too high. And that basically causes the cost of transitions to go up, which is one of the core values of Bitcoin, inexpensive transactions. Ethereum has solved a lot of those problems, but Ethereum has a much bigger problem because we're trying to store programs and data and run programs on the network. So our requirements are far more extreme. So the first version of Ethereum 1.0 is not going to be extremely scalable, certainly more scalable than Bitcoin. But we've already formed a team to build version 2.0, which is focused on making transactions per second scalable, data storage scalable, and the amount of computation that you can stuff in a 12-second block time scalable. So that basically looks like sharding the network, where certain groups of nodes focus on some things and other groups focus on other things.
So Vitalik, he goes on this exodus around the world, dealing with Colorcoin, Mastercoin, figuring out what would be the best way to begin from scratch to build the perfect protocol. Mm-hmm. And then, did you know him before this?
No, I had read a lot of his articles. He basically took over Bitcoin Magazine, and there was this person named Vitalik Buterin who was writing these incredibly clearly expressed, thoughtful articles on every aspect of Bitcoin and related technologies. And then, like 5 months later, I find out that he's 19. I'm like, wow.
So you approached him?
Well, it was kind of an accident, actually. I was up. He invented Ethereum in November of 2013.
Okay.
I was up.
I remember that.
I'm from Toronto also. I was visiting my family over Christmas, and on January 1st, I went to a meetup in Decentral, Bitcoin Decentral in downtown Toronto.
Okay.
And ran into Vitalik, ran into Anthony Diorio, another one of the people who's a founder of Ethereum.
Was Anthony working with Vitalik at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Vitalik had circulated the paper to like 5 or 6 people at that time, may have been a little more.
Were you one of those people?
No, I just started talking.
Okay.
I didn't know Vitalik at that point.
Right.
So we just started talking at that event, and I remained interested, and we kept talking. And eventually I got invited to sort of the inaugural party to be part of the team, and that happened in February.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when does Ethereum 1.0 launch?
It's looking like March.
March, okay.
There's a chance it'll slip into February.
And really?
Yeah, we're trying to freeze the feature set and get a good solid system out there without some of the bells and whistles that are planned. There are just so many bells and whistles or fundamental items on the roadmap.
Which is Ethereum 2.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And or 1.x, 1.1, 1.2.
So basically, you're going to be issuing 1.x, 2.0.
Constant updates, yeah.
Okay.
So the deal is that for as long as we keep the protocol the same, we can improve the clients and add some things, as long as everybody is still speaking the same language on the network. But as soon as we make radical changes so that the language on the network has to change, then we have to create another network. So at that point, we'll go to 2.0.
Any groundbreaking news that you'd like to unleash right now, right here?
Ethereum's coming.
Okay. Joe, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Zach.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. Follow us on Twitter at Real Evotion. Visit our website at evotionmedia.com. I'm Zach LeBeau for Talking Revolution.